Hi guys, we've been busy putting together our new shop here and it's time for another update on the progress. If you're just joining us, let me recap. This is the small town I live in. I recently bought this 5,000 square foot commercial building on the town's main street. Half of it I rent out to the Postal Service for a tidy sum, and I'm turning the other half into a new workshop and video studio. In our last two vlogs, we added 2 new rooms and a bunch of wiring for all the machines that will go in the main shop. I'll link to those videos at the end of this video right on the screen. Today, we're putting in dust collection and lighting, both of which are significant upgrades that I think you'll find pretty interesting, so stick around a few minutes. First, let's talk about dust collection. In my old shop, I had a Clearview Cyclone, and many a day was spent staring at that tornado of dust inside. But I spent so much time watching the show, I didn't get much work done. So I decided I wanted something different in this new shop. Not a different design, mind you. Clearview has far and away the best cyclone design out there. It's patented, only they have it. I'm sticking with it. The new model I'm installing is an upgraded version of the clear one that I had in the old shop. They call it the Pence EF5, and it's made from 16 gauge welded steel, so I can't see through it anymore. Besides the fact that it's no longer clear, it also has a 16-inch impeller, which is a little bit bigger than my older unit and twice as large as the typical single-stage dust collector. That's why it needs a 5-horsepower motor to drive it, and it needs 6-inch main lines on the ductwork. 8-inch would be better. I went with 6. One problem I did have was this thing is taller than my last Cyclone. It tops out at 107 inches. Plus you need another 6 inches during the install to set the motor in place. So we had to remove the ceiling tiles above it and cut a hole in the upper ceiling. Fortunately, once the motor was in place, it sat just below the upper ceiling, so we can shove some insulation up in there and patch up the hole. But we're going to have to modify the drop ceiling to go around the motor later because it's still going to protrude up into that space. By the way, I have some unsolicited advice for the Clearview folks if they watch this video. You guys have spent years and years building a brand and a reputation, something I know a little bit about. So I was surprised to see the logo on this new Cyclone. It says Pence EF5 really big, and then tiny letters beneath that nobody can read says manufactured by Clearview. People who see this in the background are going to say sweet Pence Cyclone when they should be saying sweet Clearview Cyclone. I'm just saying. Now what were we talking about? Ductwork. I was going to install some of that sweet Norfab steel ductwork that seems to be all the rage these days, but I estimated that this complex system that we're doing here would have cost like 5 or 10 grand just for the ducts, and that is a lot. So I salvaged as much of the 6-inch PVC from my old shop as I could, and then I filled in the gaps with new stuff. Unlike other Cyclones, the inlet on this one angles upward about 7 degrees. That's part of the design feature that makes it so efficient. But it also makes it difficult to install the ductwork without a special 7-degree elbow to bring the ducts parallel to the ceiling. I didn't have a 7-degree elbow, so we improvised with a little piece of flex hose. Fortunately, we were working in an empty shop, so we could just lay the ducts out on the floor while we figured out how to route everything. Like I said, this is a very complex system. It actually might have got a little out of control. We made tons of changes as we went along. Yes, the green sewer pipe looks like sewer pipe, but it's all I could get at a reasonable price. White pipe would have cost me hundreds of dollars more, not just because it's a little more expensive than the green stuff, but because I had to order a whole pallet of it, or nobody would sell this stuff to me, and then I'd have pipe laying all over the place that I didn't need. In the past, I've always used tape to connect my joints with PVC ductwork because you can't easily change what's glued together, and I change stuff. But when you turn the system on and off, I've learned that the air pressure changes cause all those joints to flex and move, and over time, the tape starts to loosen and leak. And with a system this size, leaks can really add up. So we decided to glue things together. I was a little nervous about it since these fittings are like 20 bucks each, and once they're glued, there's no changing it. But the cause of my anxiety quickly changed when I discovered that some of the new fittings didn't match the old pipe. I have no idea why. It's the same schedule, same size. They fit, but not tight enough for an airtight seal, even with glue. Imagine if I was putting sewage through these things. So we decided to glue and tape everything. The glue makes it all rigid enough so it won't flex at the joints, but not airtight, so I put on the tape to seal that up. By the way, before someone gets on my case about putting new tape over old, this stuff is super sticky, this foil tape. There's no way you're gonna peel it all off, and you don't have to. Just get off what's loose, put the new stuff on, you're gonna be fine. Now these ducts got really heavy, really fast. The original plan was to just hang it all from the suspended ceiling, but it became clear that the whole ceiling would come crashing down if we didn't tie everything to the joists above. So we used temporary straps to hoist sections into place, and then we tied them to the joists above before moving on to the next section. I call this main branch the claw. I think it makes the whole dust collector look like some sort of one-armed Final Fantasy boss. As we added ties, we tried to keep them near the edges of the ceiling tile openings so we could notch the ceiling tiles and set them back in place later. You don't want a tie going right up through the center of a ceiling tile. That'd be a pain in the butt. This was challenging because the ceiling joists weren't always easy to locate and they were seldom exactly where we wanted them to be, but we managed. In some strategic places, we did not glue the ducts, just in case we need to take them apart to clear an obstruction someday, like if a cat gets sucked up in there. So instead, I used screws to keep them rigid and then tape to seal the joints. I suppose I could have screwed all the joints together, but I feel like it's not as rigid as the glue. As the project went on and the system got more and more complex, it really drove home the sheer scale of this new shop compared to the old one. It doesn't look that big on camera, but in the old shop, the longest run I had was 10 or 12 feet, and it was only, I think, one that long, maybe two. In this shop, there are 5 main branches instead of 2, and they are all over 25 feet long. One of them is 60 feet long. That is a lot of ductwork for any system to pressurize at one time. So I installed blast gates at various places that allow me to shut off entire branches of the system when I'm not using them. This makes a very complex system function like a much simpler one. And since this isn't a production shop anyway, I don't mind having to open an extra blast gate from time to time. We ran ducts to various sections of the shop, but we're going to have to wait for the tools to come in before we can reduce down from the 6-inch main lines to the actual machine connections. So let's talk about the new lighting. This building was equipped with regular ceiling grid mounted fluorescent lights, which are terrible for filming and I think woodworking in general. For one thing, they aren't very bright. You need a lot of them to properly illuminate a space like this. But fluorescents also degrade over time, which means the color changes as they get older. After a few years, every bulb in the shop is going to be emitting a different shade of light, and that changes the way you see your projects, especially wood tones and finishes. Not to mention, it messes with our cameras here. So I decided to replace all the lighting with high-quality LEDs, and let me tell you, I had no idea how LED lighting has changed in recent years. I was still thinking of those simple LED shop lights that you can get in the home centers. But this company, American Green Lights, has a whole range of LED types and fixtures, stuff I didn't even know existed. You can get shop lights like Jay Bates did in his shop, or you can get different types of LED strips and make your own fixtures that are customized to your needs like John Heinz did. But what I did was something totally different. I got a bunch of self-contained LED strips with built-in diffusers. You want a diffuser because these things are bright and you're gonna wanna soften that light a bit, especially for filming. One 3/4 inch wide, 46-inch long strip is equal to 2 4-foot fluorescent tubes, yet they only use about 1/3 of the power, 1/3. You can hang these things anywhere, but I decided to use little magnetic brackets to attach them right to the bottom of my ceiling grid. This way I can move them around if I need to. The wiring is really unique too. With regular fluorescent fixtures, which we have in the office, our building inspector required 12-gauge armored cable run from one light fixture to the next up inside the suspended ceiling. These LED lights attach via low voltage wires to driver boxes. One driver powers about 6 lights. The drivers are wired to junction boxes at various places in the ceiling. And then from each driver, you run 2 really light 18-gauge wires right down the length of the shop. Then whenever I want a light, I just attach it to that low voltage line with a little plastic Scotch lock clip. If I want to move it someday, I just snip it off and clip it on somewhere else. Low voltage is the only way to go, let me tell you. So I'm still moving lights around, and I'm probably going to have to add some more. But I already think these things are amazing. I wish I'd put them in my shop years ago. You'll see what I mean once the shop is all up and running. But for now, I think it's time to sit back and have a cold one. Because you've earned it, my friend. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.